My fiancée and I died together on the battlefield. Only after death did I learn she was a goddess who had descended to endure a mortal trial. After she regained her divine status, Bai Ningbing glanced at me with indifference. This one is bound to me by karma. Take him to the upper realm as well. And so, from a decorated mortal general, I became a lowly earth immortal of the 9 heavens. Latter, Bai Ningbing's husband threw me into the abyss of gods and demons. Before I lost consciousness, I heard Bai Ningbing's voice. If he dies, he is just a mortal. Everyone thought I was long dead, but they never expected that I would crawl back stained in blood and slaughter. Do the high and mighty gods of the 9 heavens fear death, too? As I first entered the immortal realm, I quickly realized that life in the 9 heavens is not easy. I actually wanted to ask Bai Ningbing to let me go, but the hierarchy of the immortal realm is rigid. For a minor immortal like me, trying to see goddess Bai Ningbing is as difficult as ascending to heaven, and Bai Ningbing never sought me out again. Dozens of years in the mortal world, compared to the long, endless life of an immortal, are nothing but a fleeting moment. The goddess has undergone many trials, so it's already generous that she brought you up at all. I had to cultivate for 800 years before I could ascend, you know. I swept the fallen leaves from the ground, remaining silent. Sometimes I recall the dreams of the mortal world, the smoke of war on the desert plains, the wind and sand scouring my face, with their rough, gritty texture, back when I held my sword and rode my horse, the thundering of hooves, and the faces of my fallen comrades now blurred, drifting further and further away from me. I saw Bai Ningbing again, at the birthday banquet of the South Pole Immortal. They were short on staff, so I was reassigned to help out. When Bai Ningbing arrived with her fiancé, I was at the entrance greeting guests. As we brushed past each other, her companion, the deity Xuan Lingfeng, let his gaze linger on me for a moment. So this is the person you brought back from the mortal realm. I hear he was a general in the mortal realm. Why is his cultivation so meager? Hemp. It truly brings shame to your Xiaoyao Valley. Mortals lack innate wisdom. To achieve immortality is already a blessing. The surrounding immortals erupted into laughter. Ha ha ha. He's certainly got lucky. So many toil away with no result. To think a piece of trash like him could ascend. Bai Ningbing and Xuan Lingfeng walked away together, paying no mind to this small ripple. I suddenly remembered, back in the mortal world, every time I returned triumphant, Bai Ningbing would meet me at the city gates. At that time, he had said, the general is a person of peerless talent. If I, Bai Ningbing, could know the general in this life, I would have no regrets even in death. I also tried my best to cultivate, but for an earth immortal to advance further, it is simply too difficult. There are countless treasures in Xiaoyao Valley. Xuan Lingfeng even uses immortal elixirs to feed his spirit pets. But for a low-level immortal like me, touching an immortal elixir without permission is a capital offense. I asked the old tree immortal about the path of cultivation. The old tree laughed at my naivety. Only those born with a divine essence can truly cultivate. For earth immortals like us, reaching the 9th heaven is the end of the road. The old tree cultivated in the mortal realm for 800 years, performing countless good deeds and accumulating a lifetime of merit before he earned his chance to ascend. After becoming an immortal because of his lush branches and thick leaves, he was chosen by the Xuanling Peak and stationed in Xiaoyao Valley as a guard. He has never left this courtyard. Aren't you lonely? Haha, for a tree, it is all the same everywhere. But I am a man who never accepts his fate. I participated in several demon extermination missions and gathered enough merit to exchange for an immortal elixir. I want a marrow cleansing pill. The immortal in charge of records heard me and looked up at me. For an earth immortal, the marrow cleansing pill is useless. It won't be enough to wash away your impurities. You would be better off trading it for a longevity pill. I still want the marrow cleansing pill. That is just seeking your own death. He shook his head, turned around, and handed me a marrow cleansing pill. I gripped the marrow cleansing pill in my hand, my heart feeling exceptionally calm. Whether it is seeking my own death or not, I do not know. I only know that Lu Beichen, general of the Great Zhou, will never live in cowardly submission. Unfortunately, I never got to take this marrow cleansing pill. Just as I returned to the Valley of Leisure, a white spirit beast swooped past, snatched the bag containing my medicine with its beak. I tried to step forward to take it back, but was repelled by a flash of white light. Not far away, the High God Xuan Lingfeng watched me with a cold expression. What are you trying to do to my spirit pet? That was my marrow cleansing pill. Xuan Lingfeng waved his hand, and the spirit bird had already torn the bag open, swallowing the pill in one gulp. It is just a marrow cleansing pill. What use is it to someone like you, an earth immortal? With that, he carelessly dropped a round, luminous pill. This is a high-grade longevity pill. Consider yourself lucky to get this as compensation. You couldn't earn this even if you slaughtered 100 demons at the edge of heaven. Xuan Lingfeng paid me no more mind, and left while playing with his spirit bird. I fell to my knees. My energy energy and blood in turmoil, and it took a long time to recover. The pill on the ground was wreathed in a faint mist, within arm's reach. If an earth immortal consumes a longevity pill, it extends their life. As long as I chose to live timidly, I could live for many more years, but all I wanted was that marrow-cleansing pill. Not long after, the old tree transformed into his human form and walked slowly to my side, a blessing in disguise. Now you have gained quite a bit of extra lifespan. The old tree was already very withered. His leaves grew sparser with each passing year. Here, take it. The old tree froze for a moment. My time is almost up. What use is it to someone like me, a lowly earth immortal? Yes, with my time running out. Even the gods cannot save me. On Xuanling Peak, the High God forbids him from leaving, and he is also barred from trading for elixirs. The old tree is truly getting old. Soon, he will wither into dry wood. He occasionally sighs, saying that becoming an immortal is not as free as life in the mortal realm. Alas, if only I were an innate divine tree. There is a divine tree in the Western realm. They say that even the high gods must bow when they see it. One tree is an entire realm. How wonderful! Alas, yes, how wonderful. Back when I was in the mortal realm, my master once said that the fates of kings and nobles, are they truly ordained by heaven? Latter, he died. The royal city remained filled with song and dance, prosperous and lively. Yet my master froze to death at the frontier. Behind vermilion gates, wine and meat go to waste, while frozen corpses litter the roadside. So, the 9 heavens are no different. Having offended a high god, I cannot take a single step in the 9 heavens. He doesn't even need to lift a finger himself. Yet I am thwarted at every turn. Every courtyard I am assigned to clean always ends in some disaster. The earth, immortal evaluations. I can no longer attain a ranking. Exorcising demons at the edge of heaven. I am assigned to the most dangerous yet most futile positions. At night, as the lunar star lord drives his chariot across the sky, the old tree secretly pulls me out of the pool. The freezing pool is bone-chilling, and my cultivation is unable to withstand it. I am frozen pale. If it weren't night, I wouldn't dare save you. Can you not just endure it for a while? When you are under someone else's roof, you must learn to bow your head. If you endure for a few decades, people will eventually forget about it. Why insist on clashing with a high immortal? How does this freezing pool feel? The old tree inspects me. He sighs. The chill has seeped into your bones. Your aptitude was never meant for this. Now, there is even less hope. Don't blame me for being heartless. The old tree forces my mouth open and shoves a marrow-cleansing pill inside. This is the only one I have left. At least it will help drive out the cold. I stare up at the sky, remaining silent. There is another marrow-cleansing pill in my room. It carries the faint scent of the high deity Bai Ningbing. So, he still remembers me. How interesting. Leaving the pill behind quietly, yet intentionally leaving his scent. Doing a good deed without seeking credit. Does he want me to keep feeling grateful? Come out. I know you haven't left, goddess. A moment later, Bai Ningbing appears. Lu Bei, do not set yourself against Xuan Lingfeng. He is the young lord of the Eastern Wood Realm. You cannot afford to offend him. I'm shocked that you still remember me, goddess. I say, truly stunned. Bai Ningbing purses her lips and frowns slightly. I have done my best to help you ascend, she says coldly. The Eastern Wood Realm has earned great merit in vanquishing demons. The safety of the 9 heavens relies upon the Xuan Lingfeng clan. He dislikes it when I interact with other male immortals. Do not stir up any more trouble. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you. Just stay in Xiaoyao Valley. I will make you a common low-level immortal. Do not add any more burdens to my plate. Who is the one truly causing trouble here? Bai Ningbing never once asked if I even wanted to ascend, no matter how grand the 9 heavens may be. I, Lu Beichen, have no desire for it. I was a general of the Great Zhou. I would rather die standing tall than live on my knees. Bai Ningbing thinks she is being discreet, but within Xiaoyao Valley, there are countless immortals willing to die for Xuan Lingfeng. On the 3rd day, while eliminating demons at the edge of heaven, I was ambushed from behind by my companions. When I woke up again, Xuan Lingfeng was looking down at me from above. You dare to meet with Bai Ningbing behind my back. Do you truly believe that spending a few decades together in the mortal realm makes you unique in her heart? A low-ranking immortal like you, full of schemes. I have seen far too many. Xuan Lingfeng raised his hand, and 2 beams of white light shot straight toward me, burying themselves deep into my chest. In an instant, it felt as though a hand had gripped my heart, and under the violent shock, I coughed up a mouthful of blood. What a pathetic piece of trash. With just a casual flick of my hand, I could end your life. You shameless thing. If you dare to go near Bai Ningbing again, I will ensure you are reduced to dust. With that, he stroked his cherished spirit pet in his arms. Chillin'. Peck out his eyes for me. The white feathered pheasant surged forward like an arrow. I braced myself and dodged, but its sharp, long beak clamped onto my face. Blood poured down in streams. The pheasant stepped back a few paces, tilting its head to watch me, its bean-sized eyes full of wicked amusement. Spirit pets all love the sight of blood, and it was inherently cruel. The blood on my face had piqued its interest. It began to attack me frantically. Xuan Lingfeng, standing to the side and watching the show, chuckled softly. "Chillin'. Tear every shred of flesh from his body. You'll have an extra meal tonight." I fought to defend myself, struggling to evade its strikes. Great God. Goddess Bai Ningbing is almost here. A hint of malice flashed across Xuan Lingfeng's eyes. "Enough. Chillin', stop. Tell her this low-ranking immortal attacked the Chillin' out of personal spite, which is why it retaliated. Did you hear me? Yes. That is exactly what we will tell the goddess. If you attack a high god spirit beast, you deserve to get hurt. Even the goddess cannot protect him now. Take him away and cast him into the cold abyss to reflect on his sins. My master once said, if someone more powerful than you claims you've done something wrong, then you had better have actually done it. I bit my lip. High God. This minor immortal knows he was wrong. You know you're wrong now. It is too late. I propped myself up and scrambled to my feet. This minor immortal will never dare to do it again. High God. I have a jade pendant that Goddess Bai Ningbing left behind in the mortal realm. May I offer it to you as atonement? Could I? Xuan Lingfeng let his guard down against me. Bring it here and let me see. Look, High God. I pulled a broken blade from my sleeve, and when he wasn't looking, I drove it into Xuan Lingfeng's face. With a flick of his hand, he sent me flying backward, but I gritted my teeth and held onto my final breath, detonating my core, and strangled that feathered beast to death. Even if I am to be scattered to dust, I at least took that beast down with me. Xuan Lingfeng let out a shriek, and with a wave of his hand, he threw me into the mirror of gods and demons. As I fell, I was still laughing. My blade was cursed, so don't expect that wound to ever heal. I had specifically infused the broken blade with the core of a demon. I endured the erosion of its malice against my skin day after day, just to have one last chance to strike back if it came to this. Xuan Lingfeng, what happened? It's all because of that mortal man you brought back. He fell to demonic corruption, and he even injured me. In the final moment before my consciousness faded, I heard Bai Ningbing's familiar voice. He's dead, so he's dead. He was just a mortal after all. As long as you are all right, it doesn't matter. 200 years later, the demonic energy at the edge of heaven grows ever stronger. The minor immortals can no longer handle it. Some even require the high gods to come and exorcise demons to keep the ninth heaven secure. I don't know what has gotten into the well of gods and demons either. It has been churning for 200 years now. I heard that ever since that fallen earth immortal fell inside, the well of gods and demons hasn't known peace. What kind of trouble could an earth immortal possibly stir up? Hurry up and finish cleaning. Goddess Bai Ningbing and High God Xuan Lingfeng are coming to exorcise demons today. I want to go take a look. Maybe I can even score some perks. The two earth immortals muttered to themselves, while hurriedly sweeping the area around the well of gods and demons. They rushed off toward High God Xuan Lingfeng's position. Behind them, the demonic energy in the well surged, tearing open a gap amidst the swirling mist. A hand covered in scars suddenly gripped the stone wall at the edge of the well. Who did you say was coming to exorcise demons today? The two earth immortals froze in place, their eyes filled with intense terror. A demon? They looked at each other, and with trembling hands drew their standard-issue immortal swords. These low-grade swords hadn't been replaced in 200 years. Earth immortals possess little magical power, and were always treated as cannon fodder during exorcisms. They had a chance to escape when facing ordinary demons, but the demon crawling out of the well of gods and demons was clearly not one of those mindless low-level creatures. Crawling out was naturally me, the unlucky soul who inexplicably became an immortal, only to be innocently victimized. Why aren't you speaking? Who is coming to exorcise demons today? It is High God Xuan Lingfeng and Goddess Bai Ningbing. So it is still the old acquaintances. Suddenly, the purple-robed earth immortal let out a roar and charged forward. Demon, I'll take you down with me. I dodged to the side and effortlessly gripped his fragile neck. I don't know his name. Let's just call him Purple. Purple. What do you think happens when an earth immortal jumps into the well of gods and demons? His face turned red, and he couldn't speak. I smiled sweetly, looking over at the female immortal in green standing frozen on the other side. What do you think, little green? I think he'll die. Really? What exactly is down inside the well of gods and demons? No one can say for sure. To simply say he'll die, isn't that a bit imprecise? How about this? We throw Little Purple down and see if he dies. Little Green stands frozen in place, sweat breaking out on her forehead. With a flick of my hand, I toss Little Purple into the well of gods and demons. With his companion gone, Little Green finally breaks down and cries. I squat to the side to wait for her. After she's been crying for quite a while, I get a bit impatient from waiting, so I stand up and tap her calf with my toe. Let me ask you something. What is it you wish to ask, Venerable One? The odd way she addresses me makes me want to laugh. Don't all earthly immortals have transmission talismans? Why didn't you use one to summon the high immortals? Transmission talismans are too precious. Earthly immortals have to trade for them with demon-slaying points. I am left speechless. The 9 heavens truly go from bad to worse. They even skimp on transmission talismans for earthly immortals, but I can understand it to a degree. After all, these hypocritical high immortals and divine beings aren't exactly having an easy time of it themselves. Little Green, do you think Little Purple is dead or alive right now? Little Green says nothing, fearing I might toss her down to find out for myself. She doesn't speak, but I didn't expect her to anyway. I continue chatting away to myself. If we never check, then Little Purple is both dead and alive. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Neither dead nor alive, living forever and never perishing. Divine beings seek eternal life, but have never found a way. Why not just throw everyone into the well of gods and demons? It is either life or death. If you don't look for the result, won't everyone in the 9 heavens achieve eternal life? Alu looked at me with a look of sheer terror. Don't worry, you're the first friend I've made since returning to the 9 heavens. I won't throw you down. Who is friends with you? You big demon. We've been talking for this long, and we even went through Uzi's great life trial together, so how are we not friends? You're talking nonsense. You don't even know my name. Names are trivial. From now on, you'll be called Alu. Alu submissively accepted this name because my long sword was pressed against her neck. If she didn't agree, I would send her to keep a Z company. Let's go, Alu. Let's go and see how High God Xuan Lingfeng and Goddess Bai Ningbing eliminate demons and defend the righteous. The strong winds at the end of the world were still blowing as incessantly as ever. At the top of a lush divine tree, Xuan Lingfeng was standing right there, not far ahead. Goddess Bai Ningbing held a long sword, watching coldly as the group of Earth immortals lined up to meet their deaths. Those demonic creatures were filled with malevolent energy. If an Earth immortal even brushed against it, it would be a fate worse than death. Today's demonic creatures were outrageously fierce. Malevolent energy was darting everywhere. The Earth immortals were bleeding, staining the entire stretch of white sand red. Even after suffering so much, the 2 high gods were still just standing there with their hands tucked away, watching the show. They kept saying that the demon's malevolent energy had to be exhausted first, so that High God Xuan Lingfeng could make his move to subdue it. Tell everyone to put in more effort, and they'll receive immortal pills when they return. Once you ascend to upper immortal, you won't have to come to this hellish place and risk your lives anymore. Alu and I were hiding in the distance, just watching. I couldn't help but ask Alu, why don't these 2 high gods step in themselves? Earth immortals are already weak. It is not worth it if they get taken out in a single hit. Getting tainted by malevolent energy means turning into a demon. How terrifying. Alu still had that sour look on her face. If the high gods were to step in themselves, how would the Earth immortals ever get a chance to prove their worth? If we want to make it in the 9 heavens, we have to rack up points by slaying demons to trade for immortality pills to stay alive. I stroked my chin and pondered, what is the point of being an Earth immortal anyway? Alu's eyes were full of sparkles. Isn't being an immortal wonderful? Once you ascend to high immortal status, you get to live forever and enjoy endless fortune. You call that wonderful? Of course it is a great thing. I laughed after hearing that. What kind of good thing is that? I asked Alu again. Do you really think Earth immortals have a chance to become high immortals? Of course they do. This was her reason for living, and the hope for all Earth immortals. She was absolutely certain of it. But after all these years, have you ever seen anyone actually succeed? Alu froze at that. She struggled for a long time, but couldn't name a single person. Finally, she could only mutter sheepishly, there must be someone. That is what everyone says. I knew what was going on in my heart now. I get it. It is just like Ozzy's current situation. Just a load of baseless talk. Stop talking nonsense. You big demon. How could I be talking nonsense? After all, I used to be an Earth immortal myself. I've tasted the corruption of those demonic spirits, and I've even fallen into the abyss of gods and demons. I remained perfectly still, staring at the backs of Xuan Lingfeng and Bai Ningbing. When you have nightmares at night, do you ever wonder that the pathetic Lu Beichen has crawled back from hell? They had had likely forgotten about it long ago. With a swarm of immortals ganging up on them, the demonic creatures couldn't hold out much longer. After sacrificing another batch of Earth immortals, that aura of corruption had finally been cleared away. That was when Xuan Lingfeng and Bai Ningbing both shouted at once. "Stand down!" Xuan Lingfeng waved his hand, and the magical power of flourishing flora surged forth, making it look as if spring had arrived. A sycophant nearby immediately started buttering him up. As expected of the young lord of the Eastern Wood Realm, your power is truly extraordinary. Goddess Bai Ningbing is equally formidable, truly a paragon of the battlefield. Those earthly immortals had eyes full of adoration. East wood, west metal, north water, south fire. Along with the central earth, the realm below the 9 heavens is divided into these 5 territories. The heavens have the rotation of yin and yang, and must be divided into 4 seasons. The earth has the 5 elements, and every part of the 9 provinces follows the 5 elements, each with its own ruler. They all distinguish themselves during the Demon Purge War. They are the pillars of the 9 heavens. Xuan Lingfeng is the young lord of the Eastern Wood Realm. His father is the Lord of Wood, in charge of all things related to the growth of vegetation in the mortal realm. Those two work together quite well. The demon that was tormenting the Earth Immortal earlier, Bai Ningbing, killed it with a single sword strike. Then we heard the order. All injured Earth Immortals are to stay behind. As soon as Green heard that, she tensed up instantly. In a place like the edge of heaven, exorcising demons was never a safe job. Once wounded by miasma, one could potentially mutate into a demon. That is why all the wounded had to stay for inspection. Green had told me before, the miasma had been getting worse over the years, and many immortals had lost their lives here. Do Earth Immortals really turn into demons? I don't know. Maybe they do. I let out a cold laugh. I ignored the comment and asked again, "So what exactly is a demon?" ALV was stunned for a long time and didn't say a word. After a while, she finally snapped back. "Aren't you a demon yourself? How can you even ask me that?" I lowered my eyes and let out a low laugh. "That is right. Aren't I just a demon? But where do these demons even come from?" Lu, I'll give you a chance to answer first. Lu ignored me entirely, her eyes fixed dead ahead. The Earth Immortals clearing the battlefield had all withdrawn if they weren't wounded, leaving only a group injured by the baleful aura to wait for death. Xuan Lingfeng stood at the very front, his face covered by a pure gold mask, so no one could see his expression, staring at that mask. I couldn't help but let the corners of my mouth turn up. The baleful aura from that broken sword back then ought to be giving him quite a headache. As long as he is miserable, I'm happy. Xuan Lingfeng casually pointed at a few Earth Immortals. These few have baleful aura deep in their bones. The rest of you can leave. Good work, everyone. Go back and claim your points. The ones he pointed at were shaking with fear, completely at a loss for what to do. One bolder than the rest asked, "High God, what about us? We were wounded fighting for the 9 heavens. Are you just going to leave us here to die?" Exactly. This is so cold-hearted. Who told you your strength was lacking? Who is to blame for that? That one sentence left them choking on their words. Those who wanted to lash out were held back by their companions. The few Earth Immortals looked dazed, still pleading with Xuan Lingfeng and Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing didn't even look up, and coldly tossed out a single sentence. "Life and death are fated. You should have realized this when you began your cultivation. But we haven't turned into demons yet. The baleful aura is already in your bones. Turning into demons is only a matter of time." Bai Ningbing, why are you wasting your breath on them? They're all as good as dead anyway. The group was shocked to hear this. "Young lord, what does that mean?" Bai Ningbing turned his back on them, playing deaf and remaining silent. Xuan Lingfeng raised his hand and trapped the Earth Immortals. Then he released his spirit beast, ordering the creature to attack the defenseless Immortals. It was that wretched white-furred beast again. So, when I self-destructed back then, I didn't even manage to take this beast down with me. Lu, standing beside me, looked on in disbelief, stammering as she asked, "What is he doing?" Her face was full of shock. She couldn't fathom why Xuan Lingfeng would kill his own people. But what happened next completely shattered her worldview. The golden pheasant plunged its beak into the Immortal's dantian. Amidst the screams, the core was torn out and delivered into Xuan Lingfeng's hand. Xuan Lingfeng stroked the pheasant's white feathers with a satisfied look, his eyes glinting with a sinister intensity. "If that piece of trash Lu Beichen hadn't wounded me, would I have to use these filthy, rotten Earth Immortal cores to heal?" As he spoke, he began to channel his energy, attempting to refine the core. Once his mask was off, a gruesome raw scar was visible on his handsome face. With black miasma still seeping from it, he couldn't withstand the corruption of the malevolent energy at all, and the wound refused to heal. He had already fallen into demonic corruption. I wasn't the only one who noticed. The trapped Earth Immortals finally realized it too. Demon You've actually turned into a demon. Xuan Lingfeng had fallen into demonic corruption, which is why he needed to harvest the Earth Immortal's cores to suppress the miasma. That day, I struck him with a blade infused with demonic energy. If he were willing to endure the suffering, he could have suppressed it with some effort and lost cultivation. But looking at him now, acting like a coward, it was clear he couldn't handle even the slightest bit of pain. As a result, the miasma had seeped into his bones, turning him straight into a monster. The Earth Immortal shouted at Bai Ningbing, "Are you just going to stand there and watch this demon kill us?" Bai Ningbing's expression didn't change at all. "Hurry up, Xuan Lingfeng. After all, they are engaged." How could she not know that Xuan Lingfeng had fallen into demonic corruption? For a low-level immortal, succumbing to such corruption means certain death. But for a high god like Xuan Lingfeng, it is a different story. Xuan Lingfeng wore an unwilling expression. He waved his hand, signaling Jinji to take the inner alchemy from the remaining low-level immortals as well. Lu reflexively raised her hand, wanting to rush forward and save them. I stopped her with a firm grip. "With your meager cultivation, you'd better prioritize your own life." Having said that, I reached out through the air and grabbed a stream of clouds, instantly binding that sharp-beaked, white-furred beast. Terrified, someone on the other side let out a shout. "Who's there?" Bai Ningbing and Xuan Lingfeng were immediately on alert. After all, the disgraceful secret of demonic corruption could never be exposed. With that thought, both of them summoned their life-bound swords, striking a pose ready for a fight to the death. I stood on the tips of my toes and leapt out from behind the treetop. Surrounded by swirling demonic miasma, my face was completely obscured. The expressions of those two turned grave. Their lips were pressed tightly together, staring dead set at my every move. They blurted out a single word: "Demon." I mocked them. So the noble young lord of the Eastern Wood Realm has also turned to demonic ways. I effortlessly dodged Xuan Lingfeng's lethal blow and let out a low laugh. "In that case, I suppose we're of the same species now. Why should we fight when we share the same origin? Young lord, why would you attack your own kind?" The moment I finished speaking, Bai Ningbing and Xuan Lingfeng looked as dark as a cooking pot. Ordinary demons have no brains, but someone like me, who can talk and reason, is a great demon star. Coming into this world, I could pierce a hole right through the sky. Taking advantage of their distraction, I casually severed the talisman sealing the low-level immortals. "Go fetch reinforcements. Tell them young Lord Xuan Lingfeng has fallen into demonic ways and intends to rebel against the 9 heavens." After offering my thoughtful advice, I let these Earth Immortals go. Just as the Earth Immortals were about to flee, they were all slaughtered by Bai Ningbing's sword in the next second. Xuan Lingfeng gave Bai Ningbing a grateful look. "Thank you, Sister Ningbing. These lowly slaves who have seen my face deserve to die anyway. And as for this demon before us, Sister Ningbing, kill him quickly. If word of this leaks out, we're both finished." Bai Ningbing didn't respond to that. "Did you crawl up from beneath the well of gods and demons? Otherwise..." Bai Ningbing's eyes flickered. She seemed to want to ask something but swallowed it back. "You high gods always tout yourselves as saviors, sworn to eliminate demons and uphold righteousness. Why is it that when it happens to you, you turn to double standards? Since young Lord Xuan has fallen into demonhood, shouldn't he also be dragged out and executed? Do lowly slaves have any right to compare themselves to me? I was born with a divine womb and a high god's body. My father is the lord of the Eastern Woods. For me to kill a few Earth Immortals to suppress my demonic energy is a blessing to them. What right does a great demon like you have to question me?" With that, he raised his sword to silence me permanently. Xuan Lingfeng had been arrogant in the 9 heavens for too long. He forgot that now that he had fallen into demonhood, he was no match for me at all. The moment his longsword swung, I snapped it in two. Bai Ningbing barely managed to block one of my strikes, then grabbed Xuan Lingfeng and crushed a communication talisman. With a few leaps, they vanished from sight. She shouted urgently into the communication talisman, "A demon has appeared. He killed 16 Earth Immortals and severely wounded young Lord Xuan Lingfeng. Send reinforcements immediately." She ran so fast, not because she was afraid she couldn't beat me, but because she feared the baleful energy I radiated might stir Xuan Lingfeng's demonic nature and drive him completely insane. So even the lofty high gods are afraid of pain and death. I watched the backs of those two as they fled, but I didn't pursue them. Lu, whose aura I had hidden, said nothing at all. This scene had completely shattered her worldview. She wore a dazed expression on her face. I have no idea what is going through her head. Lu, snap out of it. Lu raised her head in a daze. Why? Why would they do this? Why would the young lord fall into demonic ways? Why would they even kill innocent Earth Immortals? What is the point of all this? I slowly curled the corners of my mouth. I asked the question Lu hadn't been able to answer earlier. Where do demons actually come from? Ancient demon gods are sealed beneath the divine demon well. To eliminate demons and defend the righteous, the lords of the 5 elements sealed them at the edge of the sky. The baleful energy leaking from the divine demon well, causes Earth immortals to descend into madness and demonic corruption. But why would even a high god succumb to such corruption? I tucked away the recording stone and began setting up a formation unhurriedly. As I placed the final stone, a massive water screen suddenly unfurled. The figures of Xuan Lingfeng and Bai Ningbing were projected directly onto it. It displayed the exact scene of them committing murder just moments ago. I let out a cold laugh. There is no such thing as a heaven-born deity or an ancient demon god. Lu. There are no demons beneath the divine demon well. Only the bones of Earth immortals who can never be reincarnated. I turned her head and pointed toward those iridescent clouds in the distance. Do you see that? The secret to the immortality of the high gods of the 9 heavens is hidden beneath that very well. That endless supply of spiritual energy is paved entirely with the flesh and blood of Earth immortals. Under the way of heaven, there is no distinction between high and low. No one is born superior to another. It is merely a group of charlatans who stole the secrets of heaven and have been bleeding their successors dry ever since. Lu. I hope we meet again. I struck Lu with a palm, knocking her unconscious, and threw her far away. I looked back at the 9 heavens one last time, and jumped back into the divine demon mirror. I had modified that recording stone while down in the well. It won't be that easy for them to destroy it. I'd like to see how they handle it once the news gets out. That Xuan Lingfeng went mad and slaughtered the Earth immortals 200 years ago at the Well of Gods and Demons. I jumped down, fully expecting to die, but when I opened my eyes, I was back in the mortal realm. My master, who should have been dead long ago, was standing there by my bed, hale and hearty. It was all just a dream you had. Stop spouting such nonsense. Going to heaven and earth, indeed. If you have those kinds of powers, why don't you start by making the Northern D disappear? What about Bai Ningbing? What Bai Ningbing? My fiancé, have you been beaten stupid by the Northern D? Where would you even get a fiancé? There is no such person as Bai Ningbing. Is all of this real? Or is it all a lie? I couldn't tell. I recovered quickly and joined Master on the battlefield. My master Lu Beichen is a general of the Great Zhou. In my memory, he died one winter. The emperor had built a tall terrace to look out over the beauty of Chang'an. The floors were paved with gold, and the walls were inlaid with gems. The emperor said that after building the terrace, there was no money left for military pay. Lu Beichen had to lead his army in a constant retreat. When the Northern Dai attacked, many of our men died in the wind and snow, wearing nothing but thin tunics. What was the point of defending the country anyway? Master fought to the death and eventually drove the Northern Dai away, but he too was worked to death. Yet this time, none of that happened. The emperor didn't build the terrace and gave all the money to the soldiers at the frontier. When winter came, the soldiers were well fed and warmly clothed, and they repelled the Northern Dai in one go. After cleaning up the remnants, the Northern Dai never dared to return. Once the spring snow melts, we'll strike at the heart of their lair to liberate the people on the frontier. After fighting a few guerrilla skirmishes, I started to believe my master's words. Perhaps the 9 heavens and Bai Ningbing were just a dream I had. How could there be immortals in this world? And how could immortals be so selfish and greedy? Everything is changing for the better. Lu Beichen didn't die. The Northern Dai didn't win either. The emperor is a good ruler. He fully supports Master in leading the troops. I haven't thought about those ridiculous things from the 9 heavens in a long time. As spring arrives and flowers bloom, Lu Beichen reorganizes the great army, marching straight toward the Northern D royal court. The sand and wind blow through my hair. Lu Beichen rides ahead of me. In that moment, tears welled up in my eyes. I am an orphan raised by Master. The brothers and sisters beside me are also poor souls he took in. Lu Beichen never married in his life, raising us orphans as if we were his own children. He is a brilliant soldier in battle, but as a master he was a bit unreliable. Fortunately, through his influence, we all grew up despite our crooked paths. The things of this world, true or false, really don't need to be so clearly defined. But unfortunately, I am a stubborn man. I have a long scar on my hand. That was when I went to the capital with Master to report for duty, slashed by a noble. That noble, I remember it clearly, latter became the emperor. That noble said at the time, a lowly commoner, if I want to kill them, I kill them. How could such a man fully support Master? Master walks ahead. I raise my whip and catch up to him. I cannot help but look back, taking one last look at the familiar faces behind me. My eldest martial brother, my second martial sister, and my youngest martial brother. My eldest brother died along with Master at the hands of the Northern Dis. My senior sister, to protect me, was killed by the emperor's lackeys. My junior brother blocked an arrow meant for me and died right by my side. 10 years of deep debt left unpaid. Friends and Master gone to the grave. Master, do you really think one must always seek the truth? What does truth or lies even matter? Whatever your eyes see is the truth. Huh. Master, you are wrong. Truth is truth. A lie is a lie. This beautiful dream, I, Lu Beichen, would rather not have it. I drew my sword and plunged it into Yue Zhenshan's heart with my own hands. My fellow disciples rushed over, and that expression of shock and pain was clearly not an act. Blood gurgled from Master's chest. Why would you do this? Even then, not one of them raised a hand against me. They were all there begging me to turn back. This must be the most agonizing torture in the world. To weave a beautiful dream for you, where truth and lies are blurred, and all your regrets are made whole. Will you lose yourself in the dream, or will you pierce the chest of someone who loves you? To seek a bloody truth? There were never any demons beneath the spirit demon well, only a massive altar. On that altar, Earth immortals offered their souls, never to be reincarnated. Weaving this beautiful dream, I suppose, was the High God's final act of mercy. But I have no use for it. What demons could there be beneath the spirit demon well? In reality, it was just a cloud of black mist and mountains of white bones. The altar was covered with the bodies of the sealed dead. Their bones were as white as jade, and malevolent energy poured out of them. These so-called demons, to put it plainly, were just the corpses of the ancient god race. As the old saying goes, all things have a spirit. Those ancient gods seized all the spiritual veins of the world. Latter, someone overthrew the god race and became the new higher gods themselves. They seized the power of the 5 elements and became the new masters of the 9 heavens. But the bones of the ancient gods refuse to rot, and the evil energy they radiate must be suppressed by the 5 elements. The current higher gods fear this evil energy too, yet they are unwilling to part with the power of the 5 elements. So they built a massive altar here, and those useless lesser immortals were all thrown down to serve as sacrifices. The so-called exorcism at the edge of the heavens is actually just slaughtering the mindless corpses of those lesser immortals. There is no such thing as a demonic creature in this world. Gods and demons have always been one and the same. Whether one is a god or a demon, all depends on a single flicker of thought. Beneath that faint, gloomy light, I had thrown Azai down and tied him to a pillar. He looked completely hopeless, but the moment he saw me, his spirit immediately flared up. Demon, if you have the guts, just kill me. The person tying him up nearby curled their lip. If he won't listen, just toss him onto the altar. One more won't make a difference anyway. We'll do whatever the general says. The people speaking just now were all lesser immortals who had been tossed down here as sacrifices over the past 200 years. I rescued them and led them to study the seal together, uncovering all the secrets of the altar. Those gods who shout about vanquishing demons are the true demons wreaking havoc on the world. The way things go in this world is just so ironic. General, what should we do with this guy in purple? That's what they call me in the mortal realm. So the lesser immortals here have started calling me General too. Lin Lang knocked A Z unconscious and asked me quietly, someone known like a Z, who fell down on his own, was the first of his kind. The others were all sold and dumped here like garbage. Az was the only one I tossed down, simply because he annoyed me. I rested my forehead in my hand and stared at Az. We can't just send him back. Show him the memory stone. If he still doesn't believe it, then send him off to the dream weavers. I thought again of a Lu who had witnessed the whole thing and knew everything. At least this time I can tell her. Az may have fallen, but he is not dead. In fact, not only is Az alive, but none of the Earth immortals who have fallen all these years are dead. Back when I woke from that great dream, enduring the 10,000-year malevolence of the divine bones, I managed to stay alive through sheer willpower. Xuan Lingfeng said my foundation was weak, a mere mortal shell, and that I was punching above my weight. Yet those so-called divine-born beings, aren't they just superior because they feed on the flesh and blood of Earth immortals? Xuan Lingfeng, that coward, can't handle even the slightest hardship. He turns to darkness the moment he touches a bit of miasma. I have been rolling in that 10,000-year miasma, yet I still hold on to my true heart. Clearly, that so-called bloodline of the high gods is just a fig leaf for their own deception. Those who arrive first hog the best spots, while those who come later are left to be butchered. This thing called fairness is held only in the hands of the few, while only living on the tongues of the many. It is truly pathetic. Beneath the god-demon well, miasma fills the air. You don't see the sun for 10,000 years. What hangs above is the reverse scale of a divine dragon. Even after all these years, it still glimmers, casting a faint light over this tiny corner. The lords of the 5 realms wouldn't dare come down to look. The heavier the miasma gets, the more sacrifices they throw down. Sometimes they even throw down regular mortals. Actually, I already smashed that altar long ago. The miasma that spread out was released on purpose by me. Those high gods who stole the power of the 5 elements fear the divine Giyu, but I certainly don't. I want to see if up in the 9 heavens, those high and mighty gods can still act so stuck up once they've lost their divine power. 3 days later, I climbed climbed back up the well to the 9 heavens. Still at the edge of heaven, no one knows who shattered the water curtain, but the whole 9 heavens is whispering about that day. Young Lord Xuan Lingfeng personally slaughtered that great earth immortal. Goddess Bai Ningbing is still helping him cover it up. It's truly terrifying. Has young Lord Xuan Lingfeng been corrupted by evil? Isn't a high god born with a divine body, in charge of the growth of all flora? How can he be afraid of baleful energy? If the young lord is corrupted, what does the 9 heavens plan to do? Right now, everyone is panic-stricken. Xuan Kang, the Lord of Wood, is helpless. He has no choice but to step out and give everyone an explanation. When the weak band together, they can stir up enough trouble to cloud the situation. Back then, the 5 realm lords relied on this exact method to overthrow the previous ones. Now, it is their turn to guard against the same. I slipped into Xiaoyao Valley knowing the way by heart. I spent years here sweeping with a broom. I know every hidden door like the back of my hand. The lush old tree that once stood by the cold pond was long gone. Only a bare, dry trunk remained. Beside it, a row of gaudy peonies had been planted. I withdrew my baleful energy, disguising myself as an earth immortal. I asked the earth immortal tending the flowers, when was the old tree by the cold pond moved? The old tree had reached the end of its life, so young Lord Xuan Lingfeng had it moved away. I nodded, staying silent, my mind filled with that tree that shouldn't have been moved. After 800 years of cultivation, he finally ascended, but did he get what he was looking for? Walking past the cold pond, I suddenly sensed a familiar aura. Right there in front of the tree trunk, buried under the soil, lay a broken sword. That is my sword. I clenched my knuckles until they cracked, forcing the fire in my heart to subside. What a foolish tree. It didn't even know how to hold its ground. Just as I turned to leave, a long sword rested on my shoulder. Who sent you here? I froze for a moment and slowly stood up straight. I reached out and grasped Bai Bingbing's sword. Goddess Bai Bingbing, I hope you have been well. Bai Bingbing's hand trembled, and the sword dropped straight down. I slowly turned around. Lu Beichen. The look in Bai Bingbing's eyes held no hostility. Instead, they were filled with complicated emotions. She muttered to herself, "Am I hallucinating again?" Her eyes were filled with sorrow. As she stood there frozen, "Are you still hating me? In truth, you have every right to hate. I went to such length to bring you to the heavens. Yet, I couldn't protect you. Even helping you become an immortal could not undo the pain that followed. Had I known it would come to this, I never should have brought you up here." I lowered my eyelids to hide the mockery in my eyes. Don't tell me you actually think helping me become an immortal was some great act of kindness. Bai Bingbing seemed to be in a trance, still unable to recognize that I was really here. So my death had actually birthed a heart demon in her. Well, that is just perfect. Knowing that none of you are having a smooth time, I can finally rest easy. I know I shouldn't have abandoned you. You're wrong. You shouldn't have done it without asking if I even wanted to, and dragged me up to these 9 heavens. Is becoming an immortal really a mistake? Everyone in the world wants to achieve immortality. You were given the chance, yet you aren't satisfied. Though he failed me, he truly did mean well. What the hell is so good about being an immortal? And what the hell is so good about being undying and indestructible? In the mortal realm, I did right by my people, and I was considered a hero. Why must I be forced to kneel and be bullied after death? These 9 heavens are less comfortable to me than the Gobi Desert. You say you helped me become an immortal, but did you ever ask if I was willing? Sanctimonious deities like you are nothing that I care for. I, Lu Beichen, have never craved fame or fortune, and I don't care for immortality. I only ask to live without regrets. Bai Ningbing, do you gods all think so highly of yourselves? You think everyone wants to live forever, wants to become an immortal, or wants to get rich. Let me tell you, I don't. Millions of people in this world don't. Looking at the buzzing broken sword in her hand, Bai Ningbing finally came to her senses. She widened her eyes, wearing a look of disbelief. You're Lu Beichen. You're not dead. This isn't a heart demon, and it isn't an illusion. Is it? Bai Ningbing, pleasantly surprised, tried to rush up and grab my shoulders. I gave my wrist a light flick, and that rusty broken sword blocked the space between us. Of course it is not an illusion. Didn't expect me to come back alive, did you? She was stung by the malevolent aura on the broken sword, and recoiled in fear, her eyes filled with terror. You've fallen into demonic ways. There are plenty of people who fall into darkness in this world. How is the young lord of Xuanling Peak doing lately? Bai Ningbing froze for a moment. She wasn't stupid and quickly figured it out. The one who injured Xuan Lingfeng at the edge of heaven and left the water mirror projection was you, Lu Beichen. Don't remain so stubborn. There is no good end for those who fall into demonic ways. The 9th heaven won't tolerate you, and there is no place for you in the 3,000 Great Taos. When that time comes, I won't be able to help you even if I want to. Help me? I put away the broken sword and stood on a tree branch leaning on my toes. When have you ever helped me? Back in the mortal realm, we were comrades and kin. But this Bai Ningbing up on the ninth heaven has absolutely nothing to do with me. Why be like this? Come with me, and I'll find a way to save you this time. Come with you. Where to? You must renounce your cultivation, and come with me to the southern realm of fire. We'll use the rootless fire to purge your malevolent aura, and then I will send you to be reincarnated. I'll bring you back to the 9 heavens in 100 years. I just find that laughable. To hell with your 9 heavens. Ha ha ha. I've never held any respect for them. Bai Ningbing, aren't you the goddess of war? Then cross swords with me. Let me see what kind of trash the gods of the 9 heavens really are. After saying that, I pulled out the bone whip at my waist and struck directly at Bai Ningbing's face. She had no choice but to raise her sword to defend herself, retreating as we fought. Lu Beichen, do not persist in your delusions. I have inherited the power of the central earth realm. You cannot defeat me. I do not wish to hurt you. But the very next second, my bone whip wrapped around his left hand. The sound of bones snapping was crisp and clear. The barbs tore through flesh, blood dripping everywhere. His sword flew straight out of his hand. It is not a matter of whether you hurt me or not anymore. The so-called heavenly war god is nothing more than this. I coiled the whip around Bai Ningbing's neck, swung the whip, and threw her directly into the cold pond. I want her dead, but not just yet. I want these hypocrites who trade on their reputations to die only after being loathed by 10,000 people. To quell the rumors flying all over the 9 heavens, Xuan Kang, Lord of the Wood Realm, spoke up, declaring he would uphold justice over family and personally execute his son for turning demonic. In the Eastern Wood Realm, Xuan Kang appeared slowly with Xuan Lingfeng. Xuan Lingfeng looked impatient, asking those around him, why hasn't Bai Ningbing arrived yet? She might have been delayed by something. Hidden in the shadows, I couldn't help but sneer. Bai Ningbing was indeed delayed. She was still soaking in that cold pond right now. A millennium of cultivation can't compare to a mortal who has invited evil energy into their body. What war god? She is just a piece of trash. It takes the 5 elements to neutralize the malevolent energy. To ward off evil, the lords of the 5 realms only concern themselves with their own affairs. Relying solely on wood energy can't stop me. Back then, I single-handedly shattered the dream of the altar. I struggled with the malevolent energy in the godbone for over 100 years to master it. In truth, I can feel it too. The malevolent energy is consuming my body bit by bit. Even with life-extending treasures, I don't have many years left to live. But my master once said, a life lived isn't measured by its length, but by whether it was stifling. If a person dies a stifling death, they've lived in vain. He died a stifling death. I will not follow in his footsteps. After Xuan Lingfeng was corrupted by magic, I truly couldn't bear to strike him. I tried many methods, but none worked. Now that it can no longer be hidden, I must prioritize justice over family, for the sake of the 9 heavens, and for the stability of the Wood Realm. The Earth Immortals below cheered excitedly. Xuan Lingfeng feigned a struggle, knotted his brows, and knelt before his father. The evidence on the projection stone was irrefutable. As soon as he appeared, there was a chorus of hisses. As the young Lord Xuan Lingfeng had never endured such treatment, he was furious. He cast a venomous glare at every gossiping Earth Immortal. You monster, today our bond as father and son ends. With that, he drew his sword and pierced Xuan Lingfeng's heart. Of course, this was just a charade for the Earth Immortals, but I took the liberty of adding a little something extra. The malevolent energy seeping through the wound would haunt him, clinging to him like a curse on his very bones. A small gift. Not worth mentioning. Xuan Lingfeng had been killed by his own father. The Lord of Wood is truly righteous. Xuan Kang waved his hand, putting on the act of a grieving father. As he cradled Xuan Lingfeng, someone in the crowd asked in a hushed voice, "What about Goddess Bai Ningbing?" Nonsense. Isn't the young lord's death enough for you? How could a goddess be treated like a mere Earth Immortal? Exactly, how could a goddess be treated like them? The Earth Immortal muttering to himself was none other than ALV, the one I'd knocked out with a single blow. I had been following ALV invisible the whole way. It turns out he is an Earth Immortal of the Wood Realm. His original form is a kapok tree. I tapped him on the shoulder. He turned around, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head. Why are you here again? That's how we demons are. We come and go without a trace. Long time no see, ALV. Did you miss the days we spent adventuring together? You demons are truly annoying. I waved my hand and made ALV invisible as well. Let's go, ALV. I'm going to take you to see a good show. Can I refuse? I don't want to know too much. If this keeps up, I'm going to end up a demon too. How about I throw you into the god demon well to keep AZI company? Then you won't have to worry about a thing. ALV immediately shut his mouth. The Lord of Wood led Xuan Lingfeng away from the other immortals, followed by his trusted aide. Where has Zenith been gone? My son has been wronged so deeply. And she doesn't even come to see him? Had I known she was so heartless, I wouldn't have helped her get the Central Earth legacy. The goddess may have been delayed by other matters. What could be more important than Xuan Lingfeng? Just then, Xuan Lingfeng woke up. Father, I have prepared a disguise mirror for you. Xuan Lingfeng's expression darkened instantly. Those lowly earth immortals, forcing me to beg for forgiveness. I have no choice but to change my face to see people. Don't worry, in a few decades we'll fake an ascension for you. And you can reclaim your true identity. Xuan Lingfeng looked into the mirror and began molding a new face. I want all those low-level immortals who pressured me today dead. Xuan Kang said nothing. He simply turned his head to look at his trusted aide. Jin Fu immediately pulled out a recording stone. Young lord, it has all been recorded. Next term, they will all be sent to the edge of heaven. You will be able to handle them yourself then. Xuan Lingfeng nodded with satisfaction. Why hasn't Bai Ningbing arrived yet? I have already sent someone to fetch her. No sooner had he spoken then Bai Ningbing finally made her appearance. Her face was somewhat pale. Seeing her in this state, the dissatisfaction on Xuan Lingfeng's face vanished instantly. What's wrong with you? Why is your complexion so poor? I ran into some trouble with my cultivation. The Lord of Wood also nodded in satisfaction. Since Ling cannot assume his own identity right now, let him go to Xiaoyao Valley to recover. Bai Ningbing gave her word of agreement. I asked Lu. Surprised? Unexpected? Not unexpected, I guessed it already. How could the Lord of Wood kill his own son just for the sake of a few low-level immortals? But I'm afraid this calculation is about to fall through. I glanced at the backs of Xuan Lingfeng and Bai Ningbing. The baleful energy I struck into Xuan Lingfeng's chest was bound to trigger tonight. The moon of the ninth heaven hung there, motionless. It never sets. On a carriage of silvery white, the Taiyin Star Lord drove the moon across the sky. The power of the stars poured down like a waterfall. The Star Lord's hair shone like the Milky Way. Lu and I sat by the cold pool, watching Xuan Lingfeng and Bai Ningbing doting on each other. I counted silently in my heart. Before long, Xuan Lingfeng clutched his chest, and the baleful energy began to seep from his wound. Bai Ningbing was the first to sense something was wrong. She instinctively stepped back. This time, Xuan Lingfeng could not control the baleful energy at all. With this chaos, it immediately alarmed every deity in the nine heavens. Bai Ningbing herself was corrupted, not daring to even get close, fearing that if the malevolent energy touched her, she too would lose control. The next second, Xuan Lingfeng completely lost his mind. He grabbed a nearby earth immortal who was watching in shock, and with a sinister look, choked the life out of him. His hand turned into a claw and tore straight into the victim's dantian, seizing the inner core within his grip. That earth immortal's scream echoed from far away. Having sensed the malevolent energy, the crowd of immortals slowly arrived at the scene, just in time to see Xuan Lingfeng acting like a rabid dog over the cold pool. Wasn't young Lord Xuan Lingfeng supposed to be dead? He has fallen into demonic ways. Lord of Wood, give us an explanation. Xuan Kang arrived with a dark expression, looking around, not daring to step up and stop Xuan Lingfeng. These people were all terrified of the malevolent energy. It was the bitter wailing of 10,000 years of divine bones, the innocent flesh and blood of thousands of earth immortals. Those who cultivate fear nothing more than being tainted by karma. This malevolent energy was the greatest debt owed by the master of the five realms. If the Lord of Wood wouldn't act, others could no longer restrain themselves. The earth immortals nearby, desperate to survive, had no choice but to use their treasures to strike at Xuan Lingfeng. Once one person led the charge, others were quick to follow. The once high and mighty divine lord had now become a demonic path figure everyone wanted to kill. Unlike Xuan Kang, who felt pain for his son, Bai Ningbing's gaze toward Xuan Lingfeng was ice cold. I hid behind the crowd and suddenly crept up to Xuan Kang. Send your son down to the abyss of gods and demons. Who are you? Beneath the well of gods and demons lie the remains of the god race, never decaying for 10,000 years, brimming with killing intent. Do I need to explain to you what lies beneath the well of gods and demons? Xuan Kang was startled, looking for me with suspicion, but he could only feel the surrounding air thick with dangerous malevolent energy. Young Lord Xuan Lingfeng has fallen into the demonic path now. The nine heavens have no place for him. What do you want? More offerings, of course. He thought for a moment. Just do as I say. After all, he had no other options left. He had his confidants drive away the fighting immortals. Then he cast a spell to lure Xuan Lingfeng toward him. Finally, he snatched Xuan Lingfeng into his Chankun bag. Lord of Wood, are you still going to protect this fiend? You've truly grown senile. Do you think a high god won't bring ruin to the nine heavens just because he's fallen into darkness? Xuan Lingfeng probably never dreamed in his life that there would come a day when he was treated like a common enemy. Xuan Kang's face turned grim. He threw the Qian Kun bag containing Xuan Lingfeng straight into the well of gods and demons. Seeing this scene, all the immortals were stunned. Once you enter the well of gods and demons, even a high god is bound to die. Is that enough? The immortals didn't dare to speak up. There was dissatisfaction etched on every face, but since they weren't strong enough, they dared not voice it. I enjoyed the play with great satisfaction, and with a smile I jumped into the well of gods and demons myself. The fallen Xuan Lingfeng had long since been trussed up like a dumpling by Linlang and her men. When I landed, he was still shouting and screaming there. You bunch of scoundrels. My father is the Lord of Wood. Everything has already been settled with our master. How dare you tie me up? Are you tired of living? Linlang sneered at him. After sensing my aura, she laughed out loud. Our general has returned. Xuan Lingfeng paused for a second. Then a surge of wild joy flooded his eyes. Xuan Kang had just sent him a voice transmission saying that the people below the well of gods and demons were his own allies. Xuan Lingfeng actually thought he could continue being a noble lord, but the joy in his eyes the moment he saw me froze instantly. He choked out 2 words through his teeth. Lu Beichen. Oh, you actually remember me. Your memory is quite impressive, my lord. Are you satisfied with the sword strike I gave you all those years ago? You scoundrel. Linlang slapped him hard across the face, shutting him up instantly. He began to feel the fear creeping in. Lu Beichen, what are you trying to do? Pimp, do you know why those trapped beneath the well don't climb out? Why? Because of the seal. Except for me, who carries enough malice to come and go freely. Everyone else beneath the divine demonic well can only wait here, waiting for the day the seal weakens. We have been waiting here for far, far too long. The blood of a high god is the key to breaking the seal. I'm afraid even the Lord of Wood doesn't know this. If I hadn't seen the words left by the ancient gods back when the malice first entered my body, I wouldn't have known either. That is why I set traps time and again, blocking every path of retreat you had, all to force you to jump into this well. Thanks for breaking the seal for us. My master once said that destroying one's spirit is the cruelest strike. As I drained Xuan Lingfeng's blood, I recounted to him exactly how I had driven him to this point, step by step. If you hadn't tried to trap me in this well back then, perhaps you might still be that glorious young lord of the wood realm. You scoundrel, my father will not let you get away with this. Haha, you are wrong. It is I who will not let them get away now. You gods who call yourselves saviors should also taste what it is like to have your fate manipulated, unable to live and unable to die. Xuan Lingfeng, open your eyes and watch carefully. Your bloodline and status, which you are so proud of, are being trampled beneath my feet. Xuan Lingfeng's blood flowed into the seal, and the sacrificed earth immortals stared intently at the hanging reverse dragon scale. Before long, the reverse dragon scale was stained red by the blood. A crisp sound rang out. It sounded like it shattered in everyone's heart. The 10,000-year seal is broken. The seal has been lifted. I leaped forward, leading the earth immortals. Behind us rose a swarm of floating, ancient bones. Those ancient divine remains that hadn't been fully dissolved by the 5 elements became our best weapons against the lords of the 5 realms. The boy who slays the dragon becomes the dragon himself. This stale, age-old play is always performed over and over again. The lords of the 5 realms once made grand vows, claiming they would save the common people and take the burden of the world upon their shoulders. But as the long ages passed, the hot-blooded youths long ago forgot their initial intent, becoming yet another mountain crushing those beneath them. Dead earth immortals returned to the 9 heavens, stunning everyone who had been kept in the dark. The highest peaks of the 9 heavens displayed our water screen. The scrying stones diligently broadcasted the high gods' conspiracies for all deities to see. Those sitting on the divine thrones were never benevolent, compassionate gods, but a group of selfish, hypocritical villains. The remains of the ancient gods lunged toward those high gods. I leaped onto the bones left behind by the divine dragon. Oh, you gods sitting high up in the 9 heavens, do you fear death as well? The high gods tried to do what they always did, using earth immortals as cannon fodder to exhaust all the baleful energy so they could swoop in to pick up the spoils. But this time, the earth immortals hesitated. Every earth immortal here has survived countless trials, having endured immense hardship to finally ascend. Some among them spent 100 lifetimes doing good. Some saved entire nations of people and were once legendary figures revered by all in the mortal realm. But here in the 9 heavens, we all became lowly earth immortals, working like beasts of burden. When the path to advancement is sealed off and resources are tightly controlled by the elite, those who come after can only serve as stepping stones for those who came before. Go on, move, For those who contribute to fighting the demons, 3 seats for high gods of the wood realm will open up, and 5 in the fire realm, 3 spots in the water realm. Can we really become high gods? If I become a high god, I won't die. The next second, a familiar green figure climbed onto the water mirror. Alu's voice resonated through the water mirror, reaching every corner of the 9 heavens. Don't be fooled, everyone. It is impossible. Even if they give you the empty title of high god, you'll still be treated as inferiors. Unless these high gods who bleed us dry are dead, we will never have a chance to rise. Before Alu could finish speaking, a snowflake bloomed on her chest. She slowly fell from the water mirror, like a bird descending into the forest. It was like water poured into hot oil. After a moment of silence, the earth immortals of the 9 heavens saw red. They silently joined the ranks rising from the god demon. Well, I took the lead, wielding my ancient whip to find the lords of the 5 realms. The lord of the earth, realm of the central plains, had been missing for years, and now Bai Ningbing had succeeded him, becoming the new master of the 5 realms. The once celestial realm had now become a purgatory. Bai Ningbing. He watched me from afar. My heart suddenly stirred, and I rushed toward him in a hurry, but alas, I was one step too slow. Bai Ningbing's blade pierced the woodlord's chest. He reached in and pulled out Xuan Kang's inner core, gathering the powers of earth and wood within himself. He wanted to unite the power of the 5 elements. Immediately after the formation was activated, the other 3 lords screamed in agony as Bai Ningbing tore out their inner cores alive. Now, I am the lord of the 9 heavens. Lu Beichen, I shall pardon you. The shift was too sudden. I stood upon the bones, quietly watching Bai Ningbing. Lu Beichen. I told you. This time I have a plan. I began to laugh slowly. At this point, Bai Ningbing, you're still so hypocritical, always forcing yourself to come up with some high-sounding excuse. Bai Ningbing. You really are laughable. I raise my sword, pointing it at Bai Ningbing from afar. A flash of impatience crosses Bai Ningbing's eyes. Lu Beichen, don't overestimate your abilities. I have gathered the power of the 5 elements. You are no match for me at all. My response is the strike of my sword, overestimating my abilities. I've heard that far too often. I fly forward to face him. Everyone who said that is dead now. You are no exception. I am gathering 10,000 years of baleful energy within me, and his intentions are twisted. He turned to evil long ago. As my blade presses against Bai Ningbing's throat, I suddenly feel like laughing. My master once said, the bold fear the reckless, and the reckless fear the death-defying. Someone unlike me, who recklessly channels malevolent energy into my body, must be that death-defying soul. Lu Beichen, if you join forces with me, the whole world will be ours. Why must you insist on opposing me? Because I look down on you. I lower my eyelids, glaring at him coldly. Have I not been good enough to you? If I hadn't brought you to immortality, you would never have achieved this standing. I don't care for this standing. I told you long ago. Not everyone desires immortality. I only seek a clear conscience. Having said that, I stop listening to Bai Ningbing's nonsense. My sword pierces his dantian. I prepare to extract the power of the 5 elements, to restore peace to the world. Just as I obtain the inner core, I realize the 9 heavens have suddenly gone silent. The heavens have yin and yang, governing the 4 seasons. The earth has the 5 elements, gathered across the 9 provinces. Whoever holds the power of the 5 elements may become the new master. I curled my lips into a cold sneer. I applied a little pressure with my hand and crushed the inner core directly. Heaven and earth never had a master to begin with. In the next second, 10,000 rays of golden light surged across the horizon. A phoenix let out a long cry. A qilin roared. The sun and moon shone together. Starting from where I stood, the power of the 5 elements slowly dissipated, returning once again to the heavens and the earth. My ageless divine bones shattered and vanished beneath the glow. A deep resonating voice echoed from the depths of my mind. I am the heavenly Tao. What do you seek? So, it turned out, the power of the 5 elements didn't just seal away the remains of the ancient gods, but the heavenly Tao as well. Without the heavenly Tao, there was naturally no justice. Now that the 5 elements have returned to the world, there will never again be gods who live forever. This is for the best. Those who cultivate are inherently struggling against fate. Why should some be born with a silver spoon in their mouths, possessing everything? What do you seek? Perhaps I seek an answer to why. Why can gods freely alter the fates of the innocent? Why must earth immortals be treated like beasts of burden? In this world, there are too many things I wish to ask why about. On the borders of the great Zhou dynasty, the heavenly Tao granted me a wish. I asked for one thing, to return to the past, to return to the mortal realm. I want to finish that battle that ended with no winner. That was Bai Ningbing's tribulation, so it was fated to be a defeat. But now, I want to try again. Without the 9 heavens interfering, I will accept whatever the outcome may may be. Yellow sand filled the sky. Withered vines and old trees stood still. Someone caught up from behind me. Wait for me. I turned and saw the familiar figure of Alo. How did you manage to follow me? I've had enough of being an immortal. Can't I come along to fight by your side? Was I impressive back there? Was I heroic? Impressive and heroic. I know. Let's go, ALV. ALV frowned. My name isn't ALV. You haven't even asked my name yet. All right, ALV. What is your name?